I don't know who this is for, but I feel the weight of someone's breakthrough sitting in this room, watching online, driving in their car, trying to hold it all together while life keeps handing out more lack than abundance. But God sent me here on assignment tonight, not just to encourage you, but to unlock something in you, because poverty is not just about money. Poverty is a mindset, a pattern, a generational curse that's been sitting in your family too long. And God said, enough is enough. There is a psalm, yes, a word from heaven that is about to flip the script on your situation. And I dare you to lean in with expectation, not because I said it, but because the word never returns void. I want you to get ready to read this psalm for 3 days, not casually, not like it's a bedtime verse, but like your freedom depends on it. Because the God of overflow, the God of more than enough, is about to meet you in your obedience. If you're ready for poverty to disappear, not just from your bank account, but from your spirit, from your identity, from your future, then I need you to say it like you believe it. It ends with me. Now let's go get this word. Some of you don't even realize that the reason you're stuck isn't because God hasn't moved. It's because you agreed with something he never said. You agreed with dysfunction. You agreed with the scarcity. You agreed with the labels they put on you when you were too broken to correct them. And the enemy has been thriving off your silence, feeding off your surrender to a reality God never offered. See, the enemy doesn't need to take everything from you. He just needs your agreement. If he can get you to say, well, I guess this is just how life is, then he doesn't have to fight you. You already laid your sword down. You already stopped swinging. You already accepted survival when God called you to thrive. But I came here tonight to break the lie. I came here to announce to every generational curse, to every cycle of poverty, to every voice of lack that has ever whispered in your ear, you don't agree anymore. There was a time when you believed that being broke was humble, that asking for more meant you were greedy, but that wasn't humility. That was trauma dressed up like virtue. And I know this is going to shake somebody, but some of us were raised to think that struggle was sacred. We were taught that just enough was holy, that as long as the bills got paid, we should be grateful and quiet. And yes, gratitude is powerful, but gratitude is not the same as agreement. You can be grateful for God's provision while still rejecting poverty as your identity. Because poverty is more than an empty bank account. Poverty is when you wake up in the morning already bracing for bad news. Poverty is when you stop dreaming because hope costs too much. Poverty is when you say, I'm fine, while dying on the inside because admitting you need help feels like failure. Poverty gets into your soul, not just your pockets. And the danger of spiritual poverty is that it will make you normalize what you should be rebuking. But today, we're breaking that agreement. I dare you to remember who you were before the world told you to settle. I dare you to speak to that little girl who used to dream in color before life painted everything gray. I dare you to reach back and pull her forward and say, we're not signing that contract again. Because whether you realize it or not, many of us have been living under invisible contracts. Contracts that say you can go this far but no further. Contracts that say everyone in your family struggles, so who are you to be different? Contracts that say you should just be happy you're not worse off. But baby, God didn't bring you through all that hell just for you to be not worse off. He brought you through so you could be the difference, so you could be the breaker, the builder, the one who ends what others endured. There is a roar rising in your spirit even now, not a soft prayer, not a polite amen, but a roar that comes from remembering your authority, a roar that rises when you realize you've been too quiet for too long, a roar that says, if I'm going to suffer, let it be because I obeyed God, not because I stayed in bondage. I was too afraid to leave. Some of y'all need to go back into your own mind and cancel the agreements you made at your lowest. The ones you made when you thought God forgot you. The ones you made when you didn't know any better. Because now you do know better. You've seen God move. You've watched him provide, and yet somehow you've still been living like lack is your default. But I came to shake you out of that grave. That's right, a grave. Because anytime you settle beneath your calling, you're not living, you're existing, you're surviving. And God didn't knit you together in your mother's womb for mere existence. He knit you with promise, with legacy, with overflow in mind. You were made in the image of a God who creates galaxies with his breath. And you're over here afraid to ask him for rent money? No, sis, not anymore. I know they called you too much when you started dreaming bigger. I know they rolled their eyes when you started declaring prosperity over your life, but that wasn't arrogance. That was alignment. That was you breaking the agreement. That was you saying, I will not die in the same place I was born. I will not repeat what I was raised in. I will not live under the ceiling of someone else's fear. You were called to multiply, not to minimize. You were called to rule, not to run. And the reason hell's been fighting you so hard is because it knows once you break this agreement, there's nothing stopping you from stepping into destiny. Some of you think you're just fighting bills, but what you're really fighting is bondage. Some of you think you're waiting for a promotion, but heaven is waiting for your agreement to end. You're not waiting for a door to open. You're waiting to stop agreeing with closed ones. God already gave you the key. But keys don't work if you keep walking past the lock like it doesn't belong to you. What if the only thing standing between you and overflow was a no? A no to fear, a no to shrinking, a no to repeating what broke you, and a yes to the unknown, a yes to the uncomfortable, a yes to obedience. Even when it costs you people, places, and patterns, yes, it's going to stretch you. Yes, it's going to challenge what you thought you knew about God. But this isn't the season for playing it safe. This is the season for breaking chains, starting with your own. So go back and check your agreements. Check the ones you made with shame, the ones you made with poverty, the ones you made with your trauma, and ask yourself, did God say that? Or did my brokenness say that? Because if God didn't say it, it's got to go. If God didn't write it, you don't have to live in it. And if God never agreed to it, then neither should you. Some of y'all have been praying like you're still on trial, like you're trying to convince God to do something he already decided was yours. You're pacing the floor, trying to earn what's already been promised. But baby, the courtroom is closed. The verdict is in, and heaven ruled in your favor. So why are you still acting like a defendant when you've been declared an heir? When God gives a word, it's not a maybe. It's not a suggestion. It's not a nice thought to keep you from falling apart. It's a declaration, a contract sealed in eternity. But the enemy wants you to treat that word like it's optional. He wants you to approach prayer like you're negotiating terms, like maybe if you're good enough, if you cry hard enough, if you beg long enough, then God might consider doing it. But I came to break that lie in half. You don't pray like a beggar when you carry the DNA of the king. You pray like you own the promise. You don't walk into prayer hoping something happens. You walk in knowing something's about to shift. You walk in knowing that your words are not just sound, they are strategy. They are weapons. They are blueprints from heaven itself. You've been praying too small, too scared, too timid. And God is saying, I need my daughter to rise up and remember who she is. You've been coming to God asking for crumbs when he's calling you to command rooms. You've been asking for open doors when he told you to possess the land, but you won't possess anything until you pray like you believe it belongs to you. See, praying like you own the promise isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's not you puffing yourself up. It's you stepping into who God always said you were. Because let me tell you, hell doesn't shake when you say pretty prayers. Hell doesn't move when you cry out of fear. But hell does shake when you speak with the confidence of someone who knows what heaven already signed off on. When the woman with the issue of blood touched the hem of Jesus' garment, she didn't ask permission. She didn't wait for a committee. She didn't write an email and hope for a response. She reached out with desperation wrapped in faith. And she took her healing. She took what was already available. She didn't beg for it. She believed for it. And some of you need to shift from asking like an orphan to praying like a daughter. You're not outside the house looking in. You're seated at the table. And when you sit at the table, you don't ask for scraps. You receive the portion that's already got your name on it. But the enemy has tricked you into thinking you have to earn access. He's made you believe that your past disqualifies you, that your struggle has canceled a promise. But let me tell you, there is no amount of hell you've been through that can override what God has spoken over your life. Not the divorce, not the bankruptcy, not the addiction, not the insecurity, not the depression. God's promise is bigger than your history, and it's greater than your current situation. So when you go to pray, stop bringing your shame with you. Stop dragging your regrets into the presence of God like they give you leverage. He already knew what you would go through, and he still gave you the promise. So why are you praying like someone trying to prove their worth when Jesus already paid the price? Start praying like the word works. Like when he said, "You are the head and not the tail," he meant it. Like when he said, "You will lend and not borrow," he wasn't just trying to make you feel good. He was establishing your future. Like when he said, "I will open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing you won't have room to receive." That wasn't a metaphor. That was a divine reality waiting on your agreement and your authority. You don't need more evidence. You need more confidence. You need to pray like walls fall when you speak, like mountains move when you declare, like chains break when you whisper the name of Jesus with authority. The enemy is not afraid of you going to church. He's afraid of you going to war. And prayer is war, but it's not a war of worry. It's a war of faith, of speaking what God said, even when everything around you is screaming the opposite. And yes, the enemy will try to intimidate you in the waiting. He will use delay to make you doubt. He'll use silence to make you stop speaking. But don't you dare back up. Don't you dare get quiet. This is the moment where boldness must rise up in your belly. The kind of boldness that says, "I'm not leaving this prayer room until I see the promise manifest. I'm not backing down until what God said shows up in my life, in my family, in my finances." Some of you have been pacing when you should have been declaring. You've been anxious when you should have been commanding. And God is saying, "I need your prayers to match your promise. I need your mouth to echo what heaven is saying." Because when your words align with the word, you become unstoppable. That psalm you're reading for 3 days is not just a spiritual exercise. It's a legal document. It's you speaking heaven's contract into the atmosphere of your life. It's you saying, "I'm not just hoping for breakthrough, I'm expecting it. I'm not just asking for overflow, I'm declaring that it's already here." Every time you read that psalm, you are signing the check. Every time you speak those verses, you are depositing supernatural authority into your life. Every repetition is a hammer hitting the chains of poverty, breaking every stronghold that's tried to convince you you'll never be free. This isn't the time for soft prayers. This is the time for strategic warfare. This is the time to call in what's already yours, to call in the harvest, to call in the increase, to call in the supernatural provision that's been sitting in heavenly places, waiting on your voice to activate it. You're not asking for what you don't deserve. You're accessing what Jesus died to give you. So when you pray, stand tall, speak loud, declare boldly, not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. Not because you've got it all together, but because God holds it all together. Poverty cannot stay where promise is spoken with fire. Lack cannot breathe where faith speaks without fear. And delay cannot last where daughters pray like they know the king. Atmospheres don't just happen. They are created. They are shaped by the words we speak and the spirit behind them. You don't walk into peace. You proclaim peace. You don't stumble into breakthrough. You speak breakthrough until everything around you bows to what heaven already said. And some of you have been living under a fog, a heaviness, a cloud that wasn't put there by God, but by words you spoke over yourself when you were hurting, tired, and afraid. The enemy's strategy isn't always to destroy you with events. Sometimes he just wants you to open your mouth and curse your own future. He'll whisper a lie and wait for you to repeat it. He'll plant a seed of fear and wait for you to water it with your words. Because once you say it, once you declare it out loud, you've given it permission to linger in your atmosphere. That's why you've got to be intentional about what you speak, because what you speak, you build. Every time you say, I'm broke, you're building a house for poverty to live in. Every time you say, I'll never get out of this, you're putting locks on doors God already opened. Your words are not just casual, they're creative. They either create pathways to promise or prisons of pain. And the reason some of us can't move forward is because we're still living in rooms built by the words of our own doubt. But today, God is calling you to shift the atmosphere, to stop letting your emotions speak louder than your faith, to stop letting your history determine your vocabulary. I know what it's like to feel so low you can't even lift your head, let alone lift your voice. But I also know what happens when you decide to speak life anyway. When you say, I don't care how dark it looks, I'm still declaring light. I don't care what the bank account says, I'm still speaking overflow. I don't care what they called me, I'm still calling myself chosen. There is power in your mouth, and it's time to use it with authority. Not just in church, not just when the music is playing, but everywhere, in your home, in your car, in your journal, in your business, in your family. Because this shift won't start on the outside. It starts with your language. It starts with what you say when no one's watching, what you whisper when you're alone, what you tell yourself when the lights go off and the applause fades. You don't need a microphone to shift the atmosphere. You just need truth in your mouth and fire in your belly. You need to wake up in the morning and speak over your day like your words are law, because they are. You need to say, this house is a house of peace. My mind is sound, my body is whole, my money is blessed, my children are covered, my future is secure. My God is faithful, and lack has no home here. Say it even when you don't feel it. Say it until your soul catches up with your spirit. Say it until the room changes. Because that's what happens when you speak life. Things change. The same way Jesus told the storm, peace be still, and the winds obeyed. You've got to speak to the chaos around you and command it to line up with the word of God. You've got to speak to the fear in your chest and tell it to bow. You've got to speak to the shame in your bloodline and tell it to break. You've got to speak to the scarcity mindset that's been sitting in your house like an uninvited guest and say, your lease is up. You've got to go. There is no room for passivity when your future is on the line. There is no room for silence when your destiny is under attack. This is not the season to sit back and hope for the best. This is the season to prophesy over your life like you know God is still in the miracle working business, because the same God who said, let there be light, is the same God who put his spirit in you. That means when you speak, things have to respond. Demons recognize your authority. Atmospheres recognize your authority. The spiritual realm leans in when a woman who knows who she is starts speaking with fire. And yes, you may have grown up in an atmosphere where silence was survival, where you were taught to keep your voice down, where poverty was normal and dreaming was dangerous, but God is shifting your foundation. He is teaching you a new language, a new sound, a new cadence, one that doesn't echo trauma, but echoes truth. One that doesn't repeat generational pain, but releases generational blessing. Because when you change what you say, you change what stays. The psalm you've been reading for 3 days, it's not just pretty poetry. It's spiritual legislation. It's a weapon. And every time you read it aloud, you're speaking divine order into your life. You're saying, poverty, you don't live here anymore. Struggle, you don't get to reign here. Despair, you don't get the final word. You are declaring what God said, and that's what makes all the difference. Because heaven doesn't respond to feelings, it responds to faith. And faith speaks. You've got to walk through your house and speak until everything hears you. Speak over your wallet. Speak over your refrigerator. Speak over your phone. Speak over those unpaid bills and tell them, my God shall supply all my needs according to his riches and glory. Speak over that empty room and declare, this will be filled with joy. This will be filled with life. This will be filled with evidence that God is a keeper of promises. Stop waiting for the atmosphere to shift to you. Shift it yourself. You've got the oil. You've got the word. You've got the authority, but you've got to use it. You've got to decide that your mouth is a tool of heaven, not a playground for the enemy. You've got to decide that your voice carries weight, that it was designed to build, not to break down. That it was given to you to release glory, not recycle fear. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to open your mouth. Because when you speak, heaven moves. When you declare, walls fall. When you decree, angels are dispatched. And when you prophesy, poverty doesn't just run. It flees in terror, not because you're powerful on your own, but because you're backed by the full force of the kingdom. You've got covenant backing you. You've got the blood of Jesus covering you. You've got the word working for you. But the key that turns the lock is in your mouth. You've been asking God for more. But the real question is, have you made room for it? Because overflow isn't just about what's coming to you, it's about what you've prepared to hold. You've been reading the Psalms, sowing the word, believing for breakthrough, but the overflow can't land where there's no space. God doesn't waste his glory. He doesn't pour living water into containers full of clutter. And some of us are so full of fear, full of pride, full of old habits, full of toxic thinking that even if God did pour the overflow, it would spill onto the floor because we're not positioned to receive it. This is the season where you have to clear the room. You have to look around your life and say, what am I holding on to that God can't use? Because you can't be addicted to familiar and still be ready for overflow. Overflow requires release. Overflow requires space. Overflow doesn't visit where there's no expectation. And God is not trying to give you enough to survive. He's trying to release more than you can contain. But if you're still thinking like you're in Egypt, you won't know what to do when he brings you into Canaan. Overflow doesn't fit in a scarcity mindset. You can't pray for abundance while still planning to fail. You can't speak prosperity and still make room for poverty to live in your house rent-free. You've got to evict the fear of not enough. You've got to tear down the walls that kept you safe in a season that's already expired, because overflow requires trust. It requires preparation. It requires a faith that says, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm building the space for it anyway. You've been anointed for more, but you're still functioning in less. Still budgeting your vision like God's hands are tied. Still planning your future based on your past. But baby, your past has no authority over what God is about to do next. And just because your family never saw overflow doesn't mean you won't. Just because your community never taught you how to handle wealth doesn't mean you won't learn. You are the exception. You are the shift. You are the woman who makes room even when there's no evidence that something is coming, because your faith is louder than your fear. Making room means forgiving people you'd rather forget. It means letting go of connections that don't carry oil. It means silencing the voice in your head that keeps telling you you're not qualified. It means opening your hands, not clenching your fists. Because God can't bless what you refuse to let go of. And the overflow you're praying for won't land in a bitter heart. It won't sit in a space filled with pride. It won't flourish in chaos. So yes, it's going to hurt a little when you start clearing things out. It's going to challenge your comfort. But that's the cost of being prepared for promise. God is not just preparing a blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. He's stretching your capacity, stretching your spirit, stretching your ability to hold what's on the way. Because overflow isn't just about receiving, it's about managing. And some of us are so focused on the miracle that we forget we've got to steward it when it comes. We're praying for houses, but not healing our households. We're asking for platforms, but not dealing with pride. We're chasing prosperity, but refusing to kill the poverty mindset that keeps telling us you're not worthy of more. But I need you to understand, this is not just about stuff. This is not about material things. This is about divine order, kingdom alignment, legacy. This is about becoming a woman who can hold what she's praying for without dropping it. A woman who can handle the blessing without it becoming a burden. A woman who can be trusted with overflow because she knows how to pour it back into others. The overflow is not for hoarding, it's for harvesting, it's for sowing into the lives of others, it's for raising the standard in your family, it's for blessing the next generation. But if you're still thinking like you're in survival mode, you'll start mismanaging your miracle. You'll treat abundance like it's temporary. You'll move like God might change his mind. But the blessing was never temporary. It was always generational. And God is waiting for you to make room for it with your words, your habits, your mindset, your systems. Some of you are praying for provision while still preparing to go without. You're praying for rain but carrying no umbrella. Praying for increase but keeping your hands closed. Praying for more but not moving your feet. But God is saying, I'll meet you at the place of your preparation. I'll meet you at the space you make. So you have to stretch. You have to act like it's already on the way. Build the room. Buy the jar. Step into the posture of expectation, because expectation is the evidence of faith. And heaven moves when faith starts making space. Think about the widow in 2 Kings 4. Her miracle was tied to the number of jars she collected. Her overflow didn't stop because God ran out. It stopped because she did. And I wonder how many of us have only experienced a fraction of what God wanted to give because we only made room for what we thought we deserved. But if you would dare to believe that there's more, if you would dare to believe that God wants to exceed your limits, stretch your life, break the box you've been living in, then you would start living like you're expecting oil. Making room looks like starting the business before you see the funding. It looks like preparing the nursery before the baby is conceived. It looks like registering the LLC before you sign the contract. It looks like praying over the land before the deal is even on the table. Because overflow doesn't follow logic, it follows obedience, it follows faith. It follows women who are bold enough to say, I don't see it yet, but I'm still clearing the space. I don't feel it yet, but I'm still building the room. I don't have the blueprint, but I trust the builder. Some of you need to clean out your spiritual closet. Throw out the old patterns. Toss the toxic mindsets. Pack up the scarcity, sweep out the doubt, because what's coming is too big for the small thinking you've been living with. What's coming requires new wineskins. What's coming requires deeper surrender. What's coming is going to stretch your faith, but it's also going to fill your life with evidence that you serve a God who doesn't do just enough. He does exceedingly, abundantly, above all you could ask or think. Make room in your calendar. Make room in your finances. Make room in your relationships. Make room in your thinking. Get your house in order. Organize your spirit. Speak to your environment and tell it to prepare for more. Tell your atmosphere something's coming. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know who. And I'm not going to be caught unprepared when heaven knocks on my door.